Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so excited. It's been a few days. I've been having withdrawals. Welcome to Beard of Darkness book reviews. Almost forgot my name. I'm excited because, well, I'll tell you why in a minute. I'm going to do my introduction first and then talk about that. How are you tonight, DJ or David John Butler?
Great. I usually go by Dave. DJ is what's on the front of the books, and I'm not offended by virtually anything you can call me. But I'm great. I'm excited to be here, Matt. Thank
Oh
you.
man, I seen that there was a few variables in the way that as an author you go by DJ. I was just going to kind of touch on every single one of those. So, man, I'm just excited to be here. I have to say, the gentleman and very, I guess the guy that I would say that I trust a lot, and there's so many of those people now. Um, he's I used to ask the question at the end of interviews, specifically with authors, and say, "Hey, who would you recommend I speak with?" It doesn't matter who. It's like who inspires you, who impresses you. The wonderful Christopher Rocchio recommended I speak with you, man. So that's all I need, and we're here. So I'm very 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 honored to be with here.
Oh well, that's awesome. I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you. Christopher is a good friend and a great ally, and that's very generous of him.
Man, so there's a few places I could start, and I'm going to start here. Tell us a little bit in general about, kind of where you're coming from tonight, and what you do in general.
Oh man. So well, I'm coming to you from a sofa that is over the router is beneath me, and the best connection in the house is down where the router is, but that's why my son is down there with his gaming console, and so I am on the sofa above the router for the second best Wi-Fi in the house. Um, so it's common in reading writer biographies that you'll find people have like a grab bag of jobs. They have sort of a career of odd stuff, odds and ends, right? So mine is far from the weirdest list in that sense. I actually, like, my original background, my original training is in law. I technically am still a lawyer. I don't really do that stuff anymore. Um, but I was a lawyer full time for 11 years, was in London and New York, and then came out west to go in house in microchip manufacturers. I am a corporate trainer. I've been doing corporate training for about 11 years, I guess, all in. Is a full-time job for most of that time. Right now, it's basically a part-time job. I teach business acumen. So that means that I get up in front of employees of very large corporations. You've probably heard of many of them, like CVS or uh, or what? Verizon is a client I've taught a lot, or Marathon Petroleum, and teach their employees how to understand and deal with their financial statements, right? Like, how do I read a P&L? How do I make sense of this? That's a piece of my background.
Wow.
The Yeah, so I'm a novelist. So my 19th novel, sci-fi fantasy novel, comes out probably 5 weeks from today, I think. First Tuesday of December. That'll be Ice Trials, co-written with M.A. Rothman. Baen is my principal publisher at this point. I've got a trilogy with a Random House imprint. I've got some stuff in the indie space. I have been self-published. Um, I'd have to think through, but it's probably something like 8 or 9 novels with Baen now. And I should buy more. And I've been editing with Baen for a while. So I first got into editing uh, um, for Kevin, very large indie press out of Colorado. And I did their acquisitions editing for, I want to say, 3 years. I still have some books published by Wordfire, and I volunteered there to sort of to do the work, to be part of making the publisher successful, also because it was one of my publishers. And basically the same thing. I repeated the same move at Baen a couple years later, at a time when Baen sort of needed editorial help. One of the editors had left. I volunteered. And so I would have to go look at the calendar, but I think for 2 years now, I've been a consulting editor with Baen. So that's a part-time job, but I edit books. I do interviews on the Baen Free Radio Hour, which is the podcast, and I do other miscellaneous stuff. So in terms of who I am, I'm married. My wife is also a writer. I have 3 kids, kind of 21 to 16 years old. I've got 2 dogs. One of them's over there. She does not know she's getting spayed tomorrow, which means she doesn't get night. So she's in for like a rough 24 hours. And she'll probably get actually, if she doesn't get food in 20 minutes, she may come over here and get aggressive with me. So we'll see how that goes.
We are dog and cat friendly. We've had multiple special guests, during live interviews with authors, with whether it was a cat or a dog. So a few things, man. I think it's cool that you kind of talked about your law degree, how you're in with the law, and then going through being a part-time editor at Baen, as well as being a self-pub author through or being self-published, also being published through Baen Books. You wear multiple hats, and if I could ever say that I could keep track of every single thing that you just said, man, I think that I would be in it. But I think also that you wear multiple hats, and I think that's a good point of view from experience, especially, again, the reason that I know about you. So let's start here. Did you fall in love with literature at a older age? Were you middle-aged, young? Did you know that you were into literature pretty quick as a young kid, or was it a little bit after?
Such a good question. So I can tell you exactly when it happened. So my dad was an economics professor, and he would go to conferences and he would bring home presents to give to the kids. And when I was 8 years old and being homeschooled, he brought home a copy of the 25th anniversary Silver Jubilee edition of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit with the Darrell K. Sweet covers, blue, green, red, and The Hobbit was yellow, and in a kind of a gold foil box. And I basically went into the bed and did not get out until I had read them all back to back. Almost burned down the house because I fell asleep reading, and I had a little bed lamp that clasped on the headboard. Okay. And while I was asleep, the lamp kind of bent down onto the pillow, and I woke up in the middle of the night and it had burned a circle right through the pillowcase. But it was, we were poor, and so it was like rough, like it wasn't like a really fine pillow. It was, I can't remember, it was like denim or something like denim. So like it didn't catch fire. It just burned through the pillowcase.
I can totally relate. I can relate to something like that. There was multiple times as a kid where I noticed, I wouldn't say that I recognized that we were poor or whatever, but there were things that told me there were kids who came from a different perspective than me.
Right. At a certain point, you're like, man,
I like that you touched that.
Yeah. Like,
because
not everyone wears hand-me-downs.
Yes. My grandmother used to come to our house. My dad hated it, but I loved it. She would bring a van full of like like thrift store clothes, and it was like Christmas to me every time she came. Little did
Yeah.
I know that thrift clothes were second worn, third, fourth
Yeah.
worn, but I loved it. So I
Yeah.
think people like you and I, there's so many of us too. It doesn't necessarily mean that you grew up poor either. You
Right.
learn to uh, recognize the value in something that isn't brand new, and I think that's such a wonderful thing, man.
100%. 100%. I am seeing, by the way, the comments, and I'm going to take in a minute. I'm going to come over here and jump in the chat and answer some of these questions. But let me talk a little bit more about your question. So I
Uh-huh.
decided when I was 8 years old that I was going to be an epic fantasy novelist. That was my
Okay.
plan. And then I mean, I saw myself that way. I would kind of write stories. I eventually got into as a lot of fantasy writers and aspiring fantasy writers do now, got into tabletop gaming, like role-playing games. Was really my principal hobby through junior high and high school. And then I don't want to say chickened out. That's not giving myself enough credit. But I decided, right, I wanted to get married, and the sort of completely speculative going out on a limb to try and write novels for a living did not seem like a fair thing to impose on the wife and family. So I went to law school, and basically that's kind of a punt. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I did not want to be Aaron Brockovich or Atticus Finch or whatever, right? I just wanted to have a job. It seemed like a good way to have a job.
Mhm.
So during law school and as a lawyer, um, uh, I tried my hand at various kinds of writing. I wrote some spec script screenplays that went nowhere. I was living in London. I did the thing. I printed up these cards with a summary of this, like a pitch for the script on the card, and I mailed them from London to a list of 180 studios in California, which is like actually quite expensive when you're mailing it from London. And nothing. You can't really make it in Hollywood, not from Hollywood, right? So I wrote a lot of songs. I play guitar badly and also recklessly, and so I wrote songs for all those kind of years. Got into self-recording. Still do that. Have a little recorder, a little like 24 track digital recording station. Because I'm truly reckless, I went ahead and bought things like banjos and mandolins that are guitar adjacent. So I'm a bad guitar player. I'm a worse banjoist. Okay, I'm a worse banjoist. Although I will tell you this, and maybe this is a story and come back and tell later. I am probably the only guest you will have had on your show who has been engaged as a funeral banjoist. I have been
1,000.
a funeral banjoist. Man, I can tell that story maybe later.
I would love that.
So, 2010, basically, I was the in-house lawyer at a billion-dollar manufacturing company. I was the senior corporate lawyer. We sold the company. Okay, so I got a little money. Like, it didn't make me rich, but it was like, oh, I could do something that I want for a little while.
Sure.
So, so I said, man, the thing. Briefly, I thought I should be a punk rock producer, and then I thought, actually, no. What I should do is go back and do the thing I wanted to do all my youth. I should go write. So I wrote full time for 2 years. The work I did during those 2 years has basically set up every success I've had since.
Wow.
I wrote the book that got me my first agent. I wrote the book that got me my second agent after my first agent dumped me. I wrote the book that got me my first sale. All right, well, the money's up. that I went back and said, time to get a day job again. And corporate training made sense. It gave me a lot of flexibility. It also, prior to COVID, it gave me a whole bunch of travel points. So I would go to, it's basically how I know Christopher. He and I have been able to spend a surprising amount of time together because I'd go to conventions. And the question about MarsCon, I don't think I'm going to make it this year. Christopher is guest of honor, so I'm sad that I won't be there. Christopher is great. He will be a lot of fun to hang out with and an interesting guy to talk to. I don't think I will be there this year. I'm not 100% certain, but I think that's the case. Yeah, and then it's just kind of been steadily trying to do the thing ever since. Putting out books, notwithstanding everything, and kind of continuing to stay in the game.
Man, so it seems to me like you're a gentleman that has taken what you love and have tried to put it into the aspects in any aspect in your life that you're currently going through, putting it into that. And I respect that because, look, I have to say, David, because you may not know this, I did not grow up a reader. I did not fall into literature and have this passion that I very much have now until I was 29. I turned 34 on November 14th. So it's pretty new to me. So to hear those stories of, you growing up and having those experiences, I find a lot. And I love that I find that a lot. And the fact that I think especially young man, young woman finds their imagination at that age to be very special. And I think that it's like a muscle and it grows as you get older. I also feel, because I've talked to so many people that kind of back me up in the way that I found literature, better late than never. I can relate to a lot of what you're saying. Not that I found it that young, but that I have it now. So I absolutely love that, man. What I hear is passion and a way to kind of put that in any aspect in your life that you could find it. In not a reckless way, in a very thoughtful way, in a way, especially like you just said, you found Christopher. It was kind of by chance, right? That this relationship happened. And I want to throw up a couple comments here if I could. Always great to see Baen guys here. Yes. I'm going to mention a Baen guy here in a minute, if I could. And John and I know especially of him. They're holding down the genre fiction these days. Great sci-fi. Yeah. So the covers, it's like, it doesn't matter who it is through Baen, but those covers, the typography, everything about it is just brilliant and it's different. It's not something you see from any other publishers. I'm going to bring up, if I could, our good guy, Howard Andrew Jones. I know that he had some setbacks, and I don't know how he's doing. I sent him an email. I don't expect that he's doing the best. I just hope that he knows how many people are influenced by what he does.
Yeah, I don't have the full story, and I hope I'm not breaking news here. So I love Howard's writing. In fact, let me say this. I saw Howard reading an excerpt out of Lord of the Shattered Land at LibertyCon 2 years ago, maybe. And I basically fell in love with the dude because he was so unironic that he made himself cry when he was reading this story. And I was like, wow. And I'm so sick of fantasy novels and science fiction that are snark and look at me, how cutesy I can be. And he was none of that. He was fully in the story. And there was this minor character talking about the destruction of her homeland and the sort of the protagonist, Hanovar, who's kind of like Conan the Barbarian, but also he's
Yeah.
kind of like Hannibal of Carthage, and he's also lost his homeland, right? And so like this is resonating with him, and like Howard's crying as he reads his story. He writes so beautifully, and it's such great stuff. It's like just great sword and sorcery novels. I don't know, man. I don't intend to be breaking something that's public. I think people probably basically know this, but
Yeah.
I well, so here at Liberty Con this year, I had met him before a couple years.
Still there, brother? Let's see here. If you guys can hear me, if he doesn't pop back,
Years ago, but we sat down and had a great conversation.
can you hear me, brother? Yeah. Rod Guiley, I hope that he hears that, man. It does happen to everybody. Happens to me too. Happens absolutely. If he's not coming through, I'll wait for him to come back through. But
Back, can you see me?
hold on, I can hear you now, brother. All right, can you hear me?
Okay, can you?
Yep. We're back.
I can
All
hear
right.
you.
Yep, you were talking about no. You're
Okay,
good, man.
I'm sorry about that.
No, dude, no sorries. Are you kidding
So-
me? So you were talking about Howard Andrew Jones at a convention. He was talking about his work.
And it was a beautiful conversation, and I loved the dude, and I was so excited that we were publishing him. And then a couple of months later, his agent told us that he'd gone in. I think he went in for a routine checkup, and they found terminal brain cancer. And like
I sent him an email, man. And I'm so this is how so John in the comments right here. Let me find him again. Johnny Douglas sent me his work. Now, you know that I'm new in as far as like years, as far as reading. This was the first sword and sorcery. I had kind of thrown it out, Conan, whatever. But Howard Andrew Jones ended up in my inbox as far as my mailbox. And I read both of these books, dude. And I emailed Howard. I was like, I've never been inspired the way that this was so much fun, man. And this is much before kind of like the most latest news of him came out. And you know, I've told he knows that, and we were going to have an interview, and then I heard from John the unfortunate news, man. I sent him an email kind of like, hey, it's like, what do you say? But I did say something along the lines of, man, nothing changed. I'm still inspired by your work. I just there's nothing I can say, but if there's anything I can do, please let me know. I haven't heard anything from him, and I don't blame him. I probably wouldn't know what to say to anybody else, you know, equally, but that still doesn't change it, man. The sword and sorcery genre was something I had never read before until him, and holy crap, did I love it.
Yeah,
So
that's it's so good. And life is sometimes just beautiful tragedy, right? Or tragic beauty. And like the beauty here is that we got these 3 books, because there's 3 books ultimately.
Yeah.
The tragedy is that there were supposed to be 5, right? And that there could have been more. And like it's so and that was a guy who and this is the conversation he and I had at LibertyCon. That was a guy who believed in beauty and believed in meaning and didn't think he was just creating mindless entertainment.
Yes.
And he fought for his visions, right? And he kept trying to get published. And man, publishing is hard. You get a publisher, you're like, great, I'm in. They kind of don't sell as many as they like, so then they like dump you, right? Or they relegate you to like the next time they give you no advertising budget, so you sell even less. And he'd been fighting that fight for 20 years, and it was like, oh, this is great. We're getting, we're getting an audience, and like, it's tragic.
Dude, it is.
I am in the last days of finishing up the manuscript. Regnery Publishing commissioned me to write a politically incorrect guide to science fiction. So I am writing that right now. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be especially politically incorrect in the end, by the way. The first draft of the first pitch I sent them when they asked me to write this started with the sentence, "Science fiction was nice while it lasted." And they said, that's too harsh. So I backed off that. So it's just kind of like a Dave's guide to some books I like, is what it really is. But like in the sort of final chapter is like, look, here are a small number of writers that I think you really ought to pay attention to. And like Howard was always going to be one of those three. He still will, but like now, right? It's like, listen, here is this Tragic Beauty. Here is this series that should have been 5. Here's a guy, and he's written stuff in the past. So, there's other series you can go read. But like, man, this is a reminder of the fragility of life, right? But go read these books because they're beautiful and great. And if the story doesn't finish, you can imagine how it would have finished.
I was talking to a couple of guys, let's say, Tim, I can't remember his last name, maybe Tim Jones. Some guys that were finishing up, or maybe not finishing up, but were writing in the Conan line of stories. Yeah. And one guy, Tim, I believe he was from Michigan, so I got along with him really well because I'm a huge Michigan fan. My parents are from Michigan. There's another guy who has been writing for a while, and he was in the comments, like just hardcore Howard was. And I just got this package from John, and again, it just blew me away how much I enjoyed like reading of Hanuvar and him. Just he was a man of his land, and he was going to take back what he knew was right, and just so much fun, man. And to kind of hear this tragic news, there's really nothing right. There's nothing that makes sense to say. There isn't, other than man. I love
life, right? It's just this is just the hell of life. Like, this is it. So enjoy the beauty and the love while you have it.
Yeah, man.
100%. Death comes for us all,
Yeah. So moving on, kind of something from, and I don't want to move from Howard, because Howard, if you're listening at all, if you ever hear this, man, I love you, brother. I love your fucking prose, brother. I love everything that you're about, man. And there's no way in hell I'll ever forget about you. But moving on from that statement, what kind of got you, David, into kind of, I know you've kind of answered this already, but what kind of moved you, what kind of got you into, what was first? I guess I have to ask that first. What was was it being with Baen, or was it writing?
So it was writing. I got with Baen. So here's how I got with Baen. I got an agent. He was a big name agent. I was like, yes, I am in. He couldn't sell my books. He dumped me. Like a year after he picked me up, he dumped me. By the way, there's a sequel to that story, because like 12 years later, he queried me as a Baen editor and didn't remember who I was. And I sent him a screen cap of his his email dumping me. He was like, oh boy, I feel chagrined.
Oh God.
So it comes around. That's all I'm saying. So I didn't penalize him for it. So my second agent is a kids lit agent. My agent now, technically, is a kids literature agent.
Okay.
So she got me a deal with Random House. That was great. She doesn't have any contacts in science fiction and fantasy. So I said, listen, I have this series I want to sell. I will go do the legwork. And so I went to the conventions as you do to meet editors. And I at Renovation in Reno, Nevada, 2011 met Tony Weisskopf. And then my first agent, actually, so I'm telling this not in order. While I had my first agent, I went out looking. I met Tony Weisskopf. My first agent dumped me. I submitted to Baen through the slush pile in February of 2012. Okay. A couple years go by. I get a new agent. She's a kidlit agent. We sell a trilogy to Knopf. It's great. I think, oh, sweet. I am in. This is now I'm going to be right. Every step of my career, Matt, I've thought, yes, I have made it. And like, there's never a brass ring. Mm-hmm. So, but she didn't have the sci-fi fantasy contacts, but I did. So I kind of put her in touch with people, and she went out and queried these editors at the big publishers. And then Tony Weisskopf read my manuscript. And so I submitted it to her through the slush after I met Tony in February of 2012. And in February of 2016, I got an offer for Witchy Eye and 2 sequels, and that's how I got into Baen. And look, the truth is, I wasn't especially sophisticated about how different publishers are philosophically different or have a different place in the market. I was just like trying to get published, right? Sure. And I mean, I knew enough. I'd experienced self-publishing. I had been with Wordfire Press. That Cinna is the publisher in Colorado. Wordfire Press, one word, okay. Wordfire. And so I'd seen other parts of the market, but I didn't know Baen from Tor especially. This was, I guess, right about when Sad Puppies was happening, though. So maybe I should have been. It's probably right about when I was realizing this stuff. That Tony made me an offer. So that's how I got into Baen. I want to say probably it was 2022 about this time, probably about 2 years ago. Is that right? Or has it been 3? It might have been 3 years that Tony Daniel left Baen, and I volunteered to step in and do some editorial work.
So as far as being an editor, what are some credentials that you would say that you had that made editing a possibility?
So I think in this case, look, in my career, I will say that most of the time you get a job because you know the person that is offering the job.
Okay.
And that person has confidence in you, right? Like in the world of work, often the job posting is the sort of cynical camouflage for, I'm going to probably offer it to someone that I can trust, but I have to post because HR says I have to post, right?
Okay.
This is how it worked. Tony knew me. She had read a bunch of my books. She knew my writing, right? So she knew I could write. She also had seen me on panels and things, knew I could talk to people. Also knew we'd had conversations about, call them professional subjects, right? So like my background's very odd, Matt, right? So can I draft and negotiate a contract? Yes, I can. Can I stand up in front of an audience and talk about virtually any subject? Sometimes, if necessary, for 12 hours straight. Yes, I can also do that, right? Can I write? I can write, right? So she knew me enough to know, I think, that I would do well, even though she'd never had me do editing, right? In terms of what is my actual experience, I guess that's not entirely fair. So I would say she knew that I had done it for Kevin Anderson at Wordfire Press for 3 years.
Okay.
So I had that experience. Also, the kind of law I practice is basically not courtroom law. It's writing law. So it is writing and negotiating and rewriting agreements, but it's also writing disclosure documents. So It's editing the sales literature that's going to go to the shareholders, and hey, do you want to buy some shares, right? So like I've been a career writer. It's interesting, Rod, how many I always enjoy running into someone who's like an accountant or an investment banker or something, and like is now trying to get their foot in science fiction. There's a lot.
When it comes to law, man, wow. If you're halfway knowledgeable about what goes into law or what could possibly, if you're a lawmaker, you can, there's the types of, I don't know. I've talked to other guys that I've graduated high school with that kind of went in a similar field, and it is a nonstop kind of like rewording of things and like finding different loopholes. So I get what you're saying as far as how to negotiate your wordage, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense.
Yeah.
I'm sure to you it does.
Yeah, well, when you're drafting a prospectus, right? What you were really like if a company's going out selling bonds, okay, or you're listing shares on a stock exchange, they write a description of the company, and that description is basically an insurance policy. Like you cannot sue them if they have accurately described the company, which makes it extremely important to accurately and informatively describe the company. So like the first 6 years of my career was all about investigating companies to understand them and then describing them very precisely and understandably, right? So that is a kind of a training for writing and editing, as well as kind of an interesting education in the world, right?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I think that brings so much experience as far as, the things that I can't speak of. I wouldn't even really know what to say. I just know that it's above my level of knowing, and I've heard things as far as like this vocabulary of things that I don't know. But I
Yeah.
can only imagine the diversity in that you know.
Well, Matt, you would do fine, right? This is the secret of every guild, is to use special language to keep out the outsiders. But like basically it's a very glorified kind of technical writing job is what it
Sure.
really is. That you have to pay somebody, $200,000 a year because they have to have gone to law school.
Well, it's like and I haven't talked to a lot of guys, especially on the channel, that kind of have an insight to that, and I'm glad that I do now. Not that I really know how to differentiate, but at least I have somewhat of a foundation to, if I ever have a question, I'm going to reach out to you. It's so crazy how
Okay.
many people that bring these wonderful topics to my channel that I had no idea of, and how I love Baen books and all of these different sort of topics and ways that you found Baen books was so different to how I found or the next person found. So
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful how it's an evolution. So
Yeah.
let's see here.
Here, let me grab a couple of questions in the chat over
Please.
here. Sandy asks about co-authoring. So I've co-authored basically 2 series at Baen. I've co-authored other stuff. My first books I co-authored are with my wife Emily, and those are not published yet. I think they will be. She got an agent in the first place with a book that we co-authored. That particular book did not sell, but may still, right?
Okay.
So in terms of the series, the 2 series with Baen, in both cases, I basically pitched the co-written books to the publisher. So the first series, it doesn't really have a series title. The books are called The Cunning Man and The Jupiter Knife, and there's a third book coming out soon. I say that because it's written. I just need to do an editorial pass so we can send it in, called The Familiar Spirit. And this is about a 1930s cunning man. So he's a practitioner of traditional he's a farmer, is actually what he is. He drives a Ford AA tractor. He has an adopted Navajo son, and in his spare time, he uses his grandma Hetty's traditional magical lore to battle the demons of the Great Depression.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. So that's co-written with Aaron Michael Ritchie. The Cunning Man is the first book. We pitched it to Baen. The second series I have co-written is with M.A. Rothman, who is a very big indie, and by indie I mean self-published author. So he's written Darwin Cipher, oh shoot, the Levi Yoder series. I can't remember. He's got a bunch of stuff. What he and I have written, and we pitched it to Baen, and the second book is coming out in December. The first book is called Time Trials, and the second book is called Ice Trials, and it's about a time traveling. It's about an archaeological team that gets caught up in sort of a time travel circuit as the champions of humanity, which is a lot of fun. It kind of feels like a thriller. It's kind of got a little lit RPG stuff going on. Kind of reads like an epic fantasy. It's deliberately sort of trying to sit in the middle of all those genres. Baen sometimes does do or has sometimes done sort of arranged co-authorings where like this model was more common in the past, where Baen would deliberately pair a big audience veteran writer with a smaller audience young writer to try and get that younger writer some readers. So that is a thing that still happens. I can't think that of a recent example where Baen has deliberately set that up. Writers still kind of set that up, like David Weber.
Yes, dude. I was about to bring him up, dude.
Yeah. So he's sort of transitioning some of his stuff to Jacob Hollow, in particular the Honor Harrington series, which I think like 3 times in his career, David Weber has sworn that he is going to, at the end of this arc, I'm going to kill Honor Harrington in battle, and he can never bring himself to do it.
I've heard so much good shit about his writing, bro.
Yeah, well, that's a great series. If you have any like experience with Napoleonic naval fiction, like after the Napoleonic Wars, there were actual naval captains who were like, I am going to write novels of my experience, like Frederick Marryat, and like the genre of Napoleonic naval fiction was born from Napoleonic naval captains, but it's never gone away. And this is what Honor Harrington is like Napoleonic naval fiction in space, you know.
Yes.
And so if you like Horatio Hornblower, there's a reason why Honor Harrington's initials are HH. She is Horatio Hornblower in space. So that is a great series. But like David has said 3 times that he was going to kill her, I don't think he's ever going to do it. I think he wants Jacob Hollow to take over and just like keep writing stories of Honor Harrington. You know, she's already like admiral of the Grand Fleet. I don't know where she can go. She's got to become Queen of Manticore or something next.
Right. So I started learning of David Weber through my buddy what's his name? Andy Peliquin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he started just talking about him, and wow, man, it's like clean sci-fi, heroic, very hard sci-fi. And I like it for what it is. It's like it's very fun.
Yeah. David's a great guy. He's his heart's on his sleeve. He really believes in, heroism. One of his sort of big ideas that he talks about a lot is he said, look, in real life, the people, the sort of extraordinary heroes just turned out to be the person who happened to be on the scene, and there was a thing that had to be done. Right. and so that's at the heart of a lot of his ideas, is like this. It was my job. I was there and I had to do the huge heroic thing. So he's a cool guy. I will warn you this. Okay. Here's how I met David Weber. Okay. It was my first LibertyCon. I got invited to my friend Gary's Little Powdered Donut Con, which is like the night before. He has like I think it's it's a bunch of little powdered donuts, and I think it's whiskey also, like, right? So in like one of the hotel rooms. So I'm up there, I'm like, cool, and I'm like, I'm not eating carbs, so I'm just kind of standing there talking to people who are eating, it's like bourbon and little powdered donuts.
Yeah.
And David Weber walks in, and Gary says, this is David Weber. And David turns to me, and I'm going to preface this by saying I love David. I love Sharon. I see Sharon. She gives me a hug every time. Okay, these are great people. I like them very much. David turns to me without missing a beat. He like just recites the next book of his that's coming out front to back, like half an hour. And I'm like, I know nothing about this series. And he's reciting it like I know the lore, right?
Sure.
I was like, of course, the Krasnovians, as you know. Anyway, I was like, wow, okay, I guess because I'm a writer, he wanted to tell me that. 2 days later, we're at the Coffee Klatch, which is a convention. It's a convention tradition where you kind of sit at a table.
Okay.
You, the writer, sit at a table, and people. This is how LibertyCon does it, at least. People circulate and sit at a table with you for kind of 15 minutes. The idea is to get like fans, readers, a chance to meet the writers in like a controlled way, right? Like if you had a hard time meeting them in the hallways, like, here I am, come sit down and meet me, right?
Sure.
So I'm sitting at a table with David Weber. The first group of 4 people sit down to talk to us, and he tells me he tells them verbatim the same half hour his next novel. And I was like, okay, this is a guy who can talk, right?
Yeah.
This is a guy who loves his own stories, wants to share them down to the last scene. So when you meet David, just be prepared that it may be a long conversation. That's all.
Hey, man, yeah, that's crazy. Because look, I don't have any of his books on my bookshelf yet, because I'm going through a lot. Look, science fiction was not on my radar until I met Christopher Rocchio.
Oh yeah.
Now I know it's a science fiction fantasy kind of mix, and look, I would lie to you straight to your face if I said that it wasn't just everything that I love.
Yeah.
The epicness, all of this. But I feel like my next adventure, when it comes, and it might be a little while because I'm super obsessed with Christopher Rocchio's work. As well as I've picked up some David Wellington, and also just fell in love with Tad Williams, dude. Just absolutely love his work. But I can tell he's a passionate guy. I can tell just by the intro that I've read, maybe the first 3 chapters of David Weber's first novel. I don't remember what it's called, but I can picture the title and all that. Like,
the first Honor Harrington one is On Basilisk Station. I don't think that was his first, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't remember what Andy. I specifically remember Andy Peliquin talking about it. I can't remember the name of it, but it was just so epically sci-fi that I had to take a break because it's not my first genre that I would pick up, but I do like it. And I do think I will continue with it. But man, that's cool that you've kind of had like that experience with all that and in between. That I haven't, and I'm still learning. So from this conversation that we're having, it just pushes me more and more to learn more and more.
Well, where do you live? Whereabouts roughly are you in the country?
I'm in Ohio. Yeah, I'm in Ohio.
So I know Ohio. So someone asked about Chance Dillon asked about MarsCon in January, which is a convention in Virginia Beach. But there is a different MarsCon, which is in Ohio.
Oh, really?
And I want to say it's in Cincinnati. I could be wrong.
So I'm like 2 hours from Cincinnati, about an hour from Columbus. I'm in Chillicothe, which is the first actual capital of Ohio.
Check and just see what is in your area, because I mean, this might just be a Google search, like Ohio science fiction conventions, because there's 2 kinds of conventions, right? So there's like the media convention, like a Comic-Con, and those things like they're fun for what they are, but what they're for is you go stand in line and you get Robert Downey Jr. to sign a photo of himself to you, and you go and you listen to the Avengers on a panel talking about, the Avengers Part 17 that is coming out, and right, that's one kind of thing.
That's not
But
what I'm interested in.
Yeah, the traditional sort of literary science fiction con is much smaller than that.
Yeah.
You usually don't have movie stars. You usually don't. But what you get is writers. You'll get writers who show up, and like there's a long tradition of even pretty big name writers just being at these little events where you can hang out and get a beer, go out for breakfast, and with Robert Jordan or George Martin or whoever, right?
That's what I'm into.
So take a look, right? Take a look,
Yeah.
and you might be it might be a thing you like, because you can have these personal encounters.
I really do. Me and my wife, we have 4 children, 5, 4, 2, and 1. We have very young children.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's lovely. It is. It's the most.
It's a lot of work. You're doing the good work, but it is work.
It is. Yeah. Holy shit, dude. It is work. But it's so cool. But we hope to go to Seattle because it'll be Worldcon at Seattle, right? We hope to be able to, and it's crazy, dude. Leanne Adams right here. We went to high school together. It's crazy that we freaking found each other, right? She absolutely, I feel like she joined my channel or like started supporting it without even knowing I am who I am, but it's so cool. But I want to kind of like reach out and go to the Seattle Con, the World Con, see some people that I'm inspired by. Of course, I like a lot of the self-pub, Ryan Cahill, man. I think he's doing so cool. What he's doing is amazing. And then people like Christopher Rocchio, people like, I don't know if you've heard of him, but John Palladino, he's doing wonderful things. Just so many people. I'm looking at my bookshelf. I didn't have this bookshelf behind me this is like the 5th person I've chatted with where I've had it, and we built it just recently.
I love it.
But it's absolutely just the coolest thing. So, man, kind of just where I'm leading into next, if you don't mind. Yeah. Are you reading anything now?
Man, I am always reading stuff. Let me think if I am reading anything that is fiction, or am I reading all nonfiction right now?
It don't matter, dude. Let's hear what it is.
Well, it's gonna be weird stuff. So I am reading 2 things right now off the top of my head. Okay, this is where you're like, you guys are all like, okay, Dave is a weirdo. One, there is a 2-volume collection called the Study Edition of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Okay, and it has the Hebrew, and it also has and it's not a photo; it is the Hebrew transcription. So someone's typed it out in Hebrew, and then it has the English translation. And I'm reading that currently. So I've read the Community Rule and the Melchizedek Scroll, and I think the next one I'm reading is the Thanksgiving Scroll, Hodayot. So that I am also reading a book called I think the title is called The Mithras Liturgy. But Mithras liturgies in quotes, but I think maybe there's another word in there. So this is a publication of and a commentary on what is probably a magical scroll from Hellenistic Mediterranean, and the original guy who published it in like 1940 or something was a German guy named Dieterich, and he was convinced that what was in it was a liturgy of a Mithraic mystery. In other words, that this was a worshiper of Mithras could ascend up the 7 visible planets of the solar system spiritually to become immortal. And so he named it. This other guy named it the Mithras Liturgy. Most people have not been convinced that it is a Mithras liturgy, but it's some kind of Hellenistic magical text. I'm reading this commentary by a guy who's like, it's kind of both. Yeah, so that's, again, probably none of you are like reading the Mithras liturgy. I am a profound that is the kind of weirdo that I am.
No, dude. Yes, because I want to be that someday. I want to be able to say I'm reading some shit like that. I ain't ready for it yet. No, sir.
Yeah.
I think that's extremely cool.
Well,
My
you're very kind,
wonderful,
Matt. Thank you.
yeah, dude. My wonderful other half. I think she finally made it. My wonderful wife. I made it. Yay! Better late than never. Yep. She
Welcome,
was
Ashley.
TikToking, bro. She was TikToking like no other, dude. She ain't gonna lie to me. It's so wonderful. Grimfell, what's going on, dude? I've seen you here the whole time. I know that, man. I've seen you here. So thankful you're here. You just mentioned my wonderful wife's name, so I had to put you up there. So
let me see what other comments. Let me make sure we're not missing any questions.
Dude, pop anything.
Current comments, yeah. DJ Butler. By the way, there's another guy named DJ Butler. Amazon. There's a thriller writer in New Zealand, and like when one of my books came out and they assigned him as the writer, I had to go say that guy is not the writer. Look at the other stuff he's written. So DJ Butler.
Get it right, y'all.
I have my kids series published with Knopf with Random House is under the name Dave Butler.
Dave Butler.
Under different versions of my name, which is just about, like, what is the point of that? The point of that is so that people don't accidentally go from one thing to another. Like, if somebody likes my kid's book and is like, I want to try this adult book by him, cool. But I don't want some 10-year-old to read like
Witchy Eye.
Right, but without knowing, right? Without realizing. So now, funnily enough, more than once, because I go on the covers of my adult fantasy novels by my initials, people have assumed I'm a woman. I had a in fact, was I with Christopher Rocky? Because I've actually toured the West Coast with Christopher, but I think this was the year before. So I was with Christopher Husberg, and we were going to do a reading at the University of Seattle bookstore in Washington, which is one of the best sci-fi fantasy bookstores in the country. And like some magazine like Seattle Underground Weekly or something had a description of the event, and they said, come hear author DJ Butler read from her recent novel Witchy Winter or whatever it was. Anyway, I am of course not offended. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah. That's just kind of something that happens. And I've heard that from multiple authors, kind of like we all have similar names sometimes. Leanne, I have to say, as someone I went to high school with you, I want to comment on that. Me and my wife went to Columbus. Dude, I got to meet hold on. I got to meet my dude. Hold on. Christopher Buhlman, dude. I got to meet Christopher Buhlman, the writer of Between Two Fires, daughter of the let's see, Black Tongue Thief, and also we got to meet what the hell is his name? Dude, he's huge. I can't remember his name right now at the moment, but I got his autograph and I bought his book and all this shit. But it was so fun, dude. So it was the very first time. Yes, there we go. Or maybe she knows. Yes, we got to meet a few cool people. Christopher Buhlman, tons of people. Yeah, so it was very, very fun. It was the first time her and I had ever like had the kids like at a babysitter, and that doesn't happen often. John, can't remember. Old Man's War.
Oh, John Scalzi.
Don Scalzi. That's it. That's it, dude. Yeah, I got his autograph. That was fun. But there were lots of big authors there. It was so fun. Yes.
Very cool.
You almost got it, babe.
Scrizzy is extremely close. It's extremely close.
Oh, dear God.
That's fun.
So she's tired. She just put four kids to bed. So,
I'm doing so good work.
Yes, exactly.
Hey, there's a couple of questions here in the chat I might jump on. So, Curran, I don't know what your question means. When you say, where should I start? Do you mean if in writing sci-fi or in reading sci-fi or something
I think
else? Give me some
he means
clarity there.
reading. I think
Oh, in
me and
reading.
him talk a lot. Yeah, I think he means reading.
Like, I'm interested in reading sci-fi generally. What sci-fi book should I start?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
let me answer that question. Hold on. But Chance, so I will tell you, probably because I am, as the English would say, bloody-minded. I never liked D&D. I never liked it. The abstractions that D&D makes bothered me. Like the idea that, oh, this character is a ranger. He can only do these 3 things.
Sure.
Right? Like, just seemed off. Also, hit points, aha, I am level 10. I have 85 hit points. Even though I am tied up and my head is on the chopping block, you have to hit my head 10 times before you can execute me with that axe. Like, that's dumb, right? And that's not really how it's supposed to work, but like the abstractions didn't. So and by the way, in like the last decade, I've sort of I've got a gaming group again. So I gamed a lot in high school, didn't do it for 15, 20 years. And I'm again gaming with some of the same people and also with like my brother and like with my kids. It's been amazing. But I've always liked sort of smaller games. So the Chaosium games. So RuneQuest has always been a favorite of mine. I really like this sort of comic epic world of Glorantha. Call of Cthulhu is great. I like Pendragon.
Ooh, yeah.
I've been at times really into the hero system. I liked Vampire the Masquerade in the late 80s when it came out. Although it got very baroque. Like, when it was best when it was just one book, because then you had like the 7 clans, and you kind of had to, like, basically, I'm going to take these 7 vampire clans, I'm going to play in a city that I know, and that's awesome. And then it turned into like this really complex, and it's like, too much. What else? I like the world of the Warhammer Fantasy role-playing game.
Dude,
and
people go crazy over that shit.
They do. I hate the rules. I've never been able, like, the rules are just so ridiculous. My gaming group loves Traveler. We're playing Traveler right now. If you know the Deep Night Revelation campaign.
I don't, dude. I don't know any of it because I always made fun of my buddies. I was like, "You're a virgin. You're a virgin," and that was so wrong.
Well, Traveler is science fiction, and Deep Night Revelation is the great thing about Traveler is it may be the first science fiction game, or it's one of the first. But the thing about it that was like so crazy is, again, it's one of the first, maybe the first life path character creation system. So you don't pick a class, you create a character and you say, now, okay, this is my character. Play has not started yet. My character wants to get some experience. He's going to go try to enroll in the army or whatever, right? Or army's not, Army, Navy, Marines, but you could have, like, be in the scout service. And so you would like randomly generate your character's backstory, which was amazing because you would never end up with the character you planned. And you'd always end up with a character with a bunch of stories. But also in the original Traveler, the characters could die during character creation. So you sit there and you'd spend like half an hour and then you died. And you're like, crap. And now I got to go start over with a different character. So in recent editions, that's a little nerfed. You don't die, you like get maimed, and it's very survivable. Usually you end up with just debt because, you owe the Navy for replacing your leg or whatever. But the Deep Night Revelation campaign is cool. It's a cosmic horror Cthulhu mythos kind of story in an epic Star Trek type spaceship journey. Like, it's a 10-year journey to the edge of the galaxy to find and defeat the weird cosmic evil that we're all scared of.
And Lovecraft created.
Yeah, and so we're about 80% mark in that.
Dude, that is absolutely excellent, man.
Yeah, we've also played other stuff. It's sort of player led. We kind of take a vote. What do you guys want to do next? And
this just kind of like tells me that this is not the last time I'm going to ask you to chat with me on the channel.
That's good. We should talk more. I'll have more, Matt. I'm gonna have news. I'm gonna want to come back.
Yeah, dude.
Have news in like 2 months or less,
bro. So First of all, I don't ever. This is a rule of mine. I
Okay.
never ask anybody on the channel that I would never ask on for a second, third, fourth, or fifth time.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I look forward to next time.
Dude, 100%. So I'm gonna go kiss the babies.
Okay. I'm
We've
gonna
got
I'm gonna
4
talk about the science fiction novels that Curran should read first while you're doing that.
Dude, I absolutely. So Curran is a gangster, dude. Curran, I have to say real quick, since you said his name,
Yeah.
he is the most telling and upfront about what he's writing, what he's reading. And I have to say, somebody that I need to give much more attention than I have into his personal journey, because I think it's very unique. So,
Okay. Very cool.
I've talked about what you're reading. We've talked about some people who have inspired you. So, are you on Instagram?
I am on Twitter. David John Butler is my handle.
Yeah. So I've got you. I feel like I've got all of your links down
Cool.
below.
Cool.
Guys, reach out to him. So what I'm going to do is promise David a 100% another chat on the channel very soon, and we will get to some more of the answers. Tonight it is getting on 10 o'clock. I'm going to kiss the babies.
Okay, so let me just say 3 things real quick. Recommendation for Curran. Okay,
Please
go read these 3 books: Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card, Dune by Frank Herbert, and Dan Simmons' Hyperion.
okay. Whoa,
Go read
yeah,
those 3 books.
dude. Yes. Okay, so I need to finish Dune and read Dan Simmons' Hyperion myself.
It's nuts. Yeah.
So I have to say, DJ, David, John, Butler, whatever you're going by at the moment, man, thank you so much. I will
Thanks for
have you
having
back
me.
on the show for some more
Awesome.
wonderful
I look forward
questions,
to it.
dude. Yeah, I'm very excited. You've been so much fun. I've learned so much through this hour and 8 minutes. Man,
It's been
thank you
great.
so much.
Good night to the kids. We'll see you next time.
Yes, we will see you guys next time. Have a wonderful night.